Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning is finally here. This is supposed to be the last one in the series, but come on. Just come on. If there's a single universal truth around Hollywood, it's to never quit while you're ahead, even when you probably should. So, do I think it lives up to the hype? Yeah, but that won't be the case for everyone. The first third of this movie, really most of the first half, is a really awkwardly paced, exposition-packed clip show. I've seen this movie twice now, and it's really not that much easier to get through on rewatch. It tries as hard as it can to tie every other movie in the franchise back to itself. Except 2, because I guess even they don't like 2. And there's a lot of hand-holding. This movie is so scared that you won't be able to follow it. I'm not kidding when I say there are more repeated flashbacks than a Saw sequel. There's also way too many characters to keep track of, as well as several plot points that don't really go anywhere, including one reveal that could have been cut out completely and change literally nothing. It's more of a piece of in-universe trivia, and it never once comes up outside of the 80-second scene it takes place in. The movie also carries a much more serious tone than Dead Reckoning. Hunt and the team have dealt with world-threatening stakes before, but they really go out of the way to sell the gravity of the situation here. They make it clear that if Cruise doesn't cling to the wings of an airplane hard enough, the world blows up. That's it. And as hard as it sells the threat of the entity, the main human villain is kind of a moron. He's still about as memorable as he was in Dead Reckoning, which is not very. And if you're looking for good chemistry between Hunt and his team, there's a bit of that in the opening, and a lot more of that during the climax, but they remain separate for a good chunk of the middle. Fortunately, that's made up for by a submarine crew led by none other than Mr. Milkshake himself, Tramell Tillman. He gets some of my favorite line deliveries in the entire movie, and Katie O'Brien is of course a welcome addition as well. And much like Kittredge in Dead Reckoning, another character from the first movie makes his return, and I actually really liked his scenes. I always enjoy seeing a formerly minor character get more fleshed out. But let's talk about what really matters. The action. There isn't a whole lot of it in the first third, but there are some pretty solid fight scenes sprinkled throughout the second half, with the exception of 2. One of which is like the underwater vault from Rogue Nation on steroids. It's a near 20-minute sequence on a sunken submarine with almost no dialogue, and it's about as perfect as a claustrophobic race against the clock can get. It also might be the best shot scene in the entire series. I say might because the other scene is the ending chase. These clips do not do the scene justice. It is what makes the movie worth seeing in IMAX. Tom Cruise is well into his 60s, and still doing most of these stunts for real because he is certifiably insane, but in a good way this time. I am convinced that if a stunt were to go horribly wrong and Cruise was killed on set during filming, that would be the take that they would put in the final cut because they know it's what he would have wanted. And I have yet to see any evidence suggesting otherwise. I'd say, despite a rocky dismount, they stuck the landing. All in all, Final Reckoning is kind of a mess. But the more I think about it, I don't really care that much. Because after everything, the really boring first hour doesn't even register that much to me. It's kind of like the Mission Impossible equivalent of The Last Jedi. In the sense that, yes, it has a ton of problems, but there's just too much that I love about it for me to call it bad. Again, I highly doubt that this is the last we'll see of Mission Impossible, but if it is, it's a finale I choose to accept. I'm gonna be generous and give this an 8 out of 10. Okay, before we go home, we might as well rank them all. This changes pretty frequently, so don't take any of these placements as final. Coming in dead last, unsurprisingly, is Mission Impossible 2. I can understand any of these movies being someone's favorite, but I've never seen this one top any lists. As much as I love John Woo, this is far from his finest work. I can't say I hate it though, because those last 30 minutes were a ton of fun. And just look at that hair! Up next is Mission Impossible 3. This one I wanted to like a lot more than I did, but it's really only better than 2. On top of the spy plot itself being kinda boring, there is way too much shaky cam, which isn't a problem the other movies had to this degree. Though Philip Seymour Hoffman is of course fantastic in this, and I would argue he's what saves the movie. Coming in number 6 is the first Mission Impossible, which I'd like to call Mission Impossible Baseline. Now, this is a really fun movie, but compared to the entire franchise, there's only a couple things that really stand out, like the break-in scene, which holds up really well. I wanted to rank this one higher too, I just think the others have more to like. In 5th place is Final Reckoning. Go back to the beginning of the video in case you somehow forgot my thoughts on this one. Number 4 is Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Okay, now we're getting into the really good ones. There is just so much this movie has going for it, from the opening scene with the plane, to the underwater heist and subsequent motorcycle chase. Rebecca Ferguson. I think I've made my point. The only reason this one's not higher is I just like the other ones better. Taking the bronze is Dead Reckoning. As sick to death as I am of part 1s, that doesn't stop nearly every aspect of this movie from absolutely ripping. I will say it's a lot more cartoony and lighthearted than its follow-up, which would make a double feature kind of jarring. But I can watch that chase through Venice as many times as I want and never get tired of it. And our runner-up is Ghost Protocol, which after rewatching, I am putting together a team to break Brad Bird out of director's jail. This just has everything. High stakes, a great team, Tom Cruise's daredevil insanity on full display, and the single greatest on-screen costume change in cinema history. And taking the top spot, to hopefully nobody's surprise, Mission Impossible Fallout. There was just no topping this one. It's one of the best action movies I've ever seen. It's one of those rare movies where everyone is operating at the top of their game for the entire runtime. I've heard some people call this movie derivative of some of the others, but I'd argue that what it does take from them, it does better. Better action, better character, better pacing, better tension, better impact. The shot of Henry Cavill reloading his fists has been ingrained into my memory since I saw it in the trailer. Thanks for watching. This video will not self-destruct because that'd be a pretty fucking stupid way to run a YouTube channel.
I'm waving my dick in the